Now, before we begin, I'd like to take you back to Hollywood's soundless, silent era. It was a time when things felt new and fresh, and Hollywood wasn't just a city, it was a land. One of the most important actors of this period was Lon Chaney. Chaney was the original Prince of Horror, a title that would be given to other actors like Vincent Price and Christopher Lee, and fought over by those two knuckleheads, Bela and Boris. Apart from that title, he was also known as the Man of 1,000 Faces, for the makeup that he would apply to himself. His two most important roles were the titular character in Phantom of the Opera and Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Why am I telling you this? You'll see. Chaney was a pioneer in the genre, and one of the most famous names of the silent era, so it was kind of fitting that he died in 1930 of throat cancer, just when sound and film became a reality. Kinda like a captain going down with his ship. Before his untimely death, he was approached by Universal to star in one of their first films with sound. Now, which one was it? Take a guess. No, seriously, take a guess as to what film he was asked to be in. I'll wait. In fact, here's some intermission music.
Intermission.
Give up? The answer is Dracula. Yes, the same Dracula we talked about 2 weeks ago. And everything seems to come full circle. This is what I love about the Universal era. Everything is connected, like some kind of crazy conspiracy. So if Chaney lived on and accepted the role, the genre as we know it would be totally different. But that's not the end. No. Chaney's legacy was his son, Lon Chaney Jr., who was a large part in the Universal era. His contribution to the era began with tonight's film, The Wolfman. And yes, this isn't the first werewolf movie, which was 1935's Werewolf of London, produced by Universal Studios. But this one is way more interesting. As for the actual film, there isn't that much to say. It's about a guy named Larry who visits his father's home in the wake of his brother's untimely death. While there, he falls in love with a woman named Gwen Conliffe, played by Evelyn Angers. In one of the most efficient, flirtatious encounters ever, he convinces her to go on a romantic walk in the woods on the night of a full moon, and she brings her friend Jenny. Along the way, they run into a gypsy fortune teller named Maliva, and her son, Bela, played by, you guessed it, Bela Lugosi, who warns them of a coming danger. At the same time, Jenny gets lost and is ruthlessly murdered by a large wolf. Larry slays the beast, but not without being bitten by the unusually large creature. Maliva then reveals to Larry that her son was actually a werewolf, and now Larry's become one as well. After transforming into the monster, he creeps around the village, kills some people, but is finally put down by his own father, wielding a silver cane. Now that's sad. It's a simplistic story, but not overly so. It's overall pretty conventional, using a lot of those creepy archetypes that I've mentioned before. There's music in this one too, which reflects the increased use of sound over the 10 years since Frankenstein and Dracula. But it's a really good soundtrack, putting the right moods in every scene. And speaking of the music, does this sound familiar? I guess Danny Elfman was a big fan. But wait, he did the music for the remake. There's gotta be some sort of conspiracy in there somewhere. The movie seems kind of divided into two different subgenres. The first part is a regular horror flick, and the second part feels like a Shakespearean tragedy. This sounds like the movie has variety, but there are some downsides. The first part is very predictable, and the second part is very overacted.
Jenny Williams, what about her? She's been murdered, sir. Wolf, gypsy woman, murder? What is this? What makes you say she was murdered? Her throat, sir.
But the best part of the film is the special effects. 10 years after the Frankenstein monster, Jack Pierce returns with another classic design. You might be wondering, how is all of that applied without the actor moving? Well, it's because the makeup was applied to Chaney over the course of many hours. He'd just stand there, and the artist would slowly apply the makeup to his face. Nowadays, it would be all computer generated, but back then, it's a spectacle. And it's aged really well. It just proves that CG doesn't make a film look impressive. I'd call The Wolfman the weakest of the big three. It isn't a bad film, but by 1941 the conventions of horror films were really beginning to get stale. The big three would meet up in 1948's Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, with Chaney and Lugosi reprising their roles, and the Frankenstein monster being played by Glenn Strange. Well, that wraps up our look at the Universal era, and its trinity of pop culture icons. Today, you see the influence of these monsters everywhere. Costumes, parodies, remakes. The mark these and many other Universal monsters made is undeniable. If someone you know dresses up as one of these monsters, then you can show off your knowledge by telling them about the history behind these monsters. On the final part of Los Lomas Presents MonsterVision. Yep, we're going there.